should and probably will fold.
But with these deep stacks, Juanda may just call here. He may be willing to take a flop. An ace-5 suited isn't really a particularly bad hand to take a flop with here.
Right. I take a flop and try to bust him.
Yeah, I think he's about a 3-to-1 favorite to re-raise here. But this is the kind of hand he might just want to take a flop with, too. Doesn't look like he's going to do it.
And one of the benefits of John Juanda raising here is he likes to raise with 2 garbage cards.
Nice.
If he only raises when he has garbage cards, this kind of move isn't real effective. He needs to raise with 2 good cards every now and then, and his opponents need to know that he's liable to raise with good ones as well as bad ones.
Well, Ivey doesn't want any part of it, so it's down to these 2.
Yes, and here on Fox Sports Net, Michael, we have been seeing very different styles. During our coverage of the Plaza tournament, we see a Daniel Negreanu. I would have bet anything that he would have just called with an ace-5 suited. John Juanda is a different kind of player. He's much more of a pre-flop player. That's what we're seeing. Wow, this is a big, big pot. John D'Agostino's in position. Lots going to depend right here on this flop.
So another one of those pivotal moments.
Yes.
In this tournament. And the flop. A pair of 10s and a 9.
Straight and a flush draw.
A straight flush draw
John
for John D'Agostino. I don't see how he's not going to win this pot. This is a tremendous, what he's thinking might be a semi-bluffing situation against a big pair, but actually he has the best hand even against a big pair, and he has a very big hand against just ace high.
Big hand.
He will play this aggressively if John Juanda continues. Look at that, 116,000 in the pot already.
Juanda's gaze goes from
check
the flop to his opponent. He picked up a vibe. He took a look at him, and I think he felt this guy's strong. I don't know if I want to really commit any chips at this point.
I think he's also paying a lot of respect, Michael, to the fact that he called that big re-raise before the flop. He has to put him on a big hand. He doesn't think he has a 7-8, but...
Interesting. 116,000. D'Agostino merely bet 35,000 into that.
That's got to send warning bells up, though.
Sure does.
Let's see if John hears them. Yes, he did.
Yeah,
grateful.
Heard him clanging.
Yep.
Nevertheless, D'Agostino winning a very attractive pot. 21 years of age, of course, and he gets to the final table, and boy, you can't imagine what it would mean to him.
Winning this tournament would be excellent. I mean, I love playing against great players, and this is one of the best tables ever. And the respect, and it helps my ego. I want to win it. The money would be nice, but I really want to win the tournament. I'm not here for second place.
Well, you've been talking about it all along, Howard. What a confident player he is, and that said, a good player.
Yeah, I said it before. John D'Agostino, I watched him play for like about 8 hours yesterday, and I was critical of a few plays here or there. I thought he might have overplayed an ace-8 at one point, but he played with poise. He wasn't scared, and this guy knows how to play the game. And I must admit, I was a little jealous. I mean, I couldn't play. I wasn't even in the same zip code as this guy when I was 21 years old. It takes time to get good at this game, and he's doing it at such a young age.
It also usually takes a lot of net worth to get over that fear of the money. He claims, yeah, the money's nice, but I want the title. I mean, to not have that constantly in the back of your mind, geez, I'm playing for $250,000, I'm playing for $500,000, that's tough to do. Guys like Paul Phillips, who are internet millionaires, they don't really think about it. Here's a 21-year-old kid.
When I was 21, I was worried about paying for my next sandwich.
Exactly. And it was about even money that you're going to be able to, right? Yeah, it was like that for me.
Well, I might have to borrow. I mean, I get it somehow.
D'Agostino looking like he's going to make an aggressive play here.
I believe he called. And last night, John D'Agostino did show he is willing to call and take flops. He is not intimidated by these great players.
Let's be honest, though. The advantage definitely goes to Ivey and Juanda post-flop. They've just seen more of them, and they play better. Ivey's picked up a big draw here, Barry.
2 more hearts. He's got a flush draw.
40,000's a bet.
40,000.
Unless John D'Agostino gets a really strong read, he needs to fold.
He does.
Yeah.
Well, the read he was going to take, if he was right, was that Ivey had a pretty good hand. Ivey did flop a flush draw here.
He did.
He was absolutely right about it. So Philip Ivey adds to his stake right now. We're coming back with more for the American Poker Championship. Well, what do they say? Behind every good man there is, and here is Lucetta Ivey, the woman behind Philip Ivey, and Nicole Shee, who is the girlfriend of John Juanda, sitting next to each other, not conversing, however, I've noticed.
Well, you know, John Juanda and Phil Ivey are very good friends, and the women behind them are also friendly.
Although I suggest for Fox Sports Net keeping an ISO camera on them just in case a cat fight breaks out.
Yeah, right, at any given moment. Not going to happen. She's as impassive as her husband.
Yeah, yeah.
I bet there's no whoopee cushions in that house.
You know, I've shared many meals with the Iveys, and she's a lovely woman. He is very lucky, and you know, I really think that having a nice, solid relationship helps you in poker. Knowing that you have someone in your life that you care about, that you want to provide for, it gives you that motivation at the table to play your best.
Are you trying to plug my latest book, Howard? I mean, that's basically the theme. Good Lord.
There again is a look at Nicole Shee.
John Juanda has been dealt the weakest hand you can be dealt in No Limit Hold'em. But he's going to play.
Well, you know, he has position on John D'Agostino. He's looking to take flops. This is the time of the tournament with the chip stacks. Oh, no, he is.
14-5.
He's re-raising. I guess John D'Agostino limped in. John Juanda hates limpers. I've seen that. He loves to raise limpers. Okay.
Beautiful thing about No Limit Hold'em. You don't always need cards. You need position, and you need to read people.
7-10 queen on the flop, so D'Agostino is sitting pretty here.
And if John Juanda is reading correctly, it's time to move on to the next hand.
And I am noticing John D'Agostino leads out when he flops a pair. Now, the reason he's doing that, you may say, well, why didn't he check to John Juanda? Well, first of all, if he checks to John Juanda and John Juanda bets, he's going to have to raise, and he might be risking a very large portion of his stack if John Juanda happens to have him beat. Secondly, I think what he's doing is he's setting up both of these players. See, I'm going to bet with a hand. I'm going to bet with a hand, and then later on, he's planning on when he misses on a flop to just lead out also. These guys aren't going to know the difference.
Good point, Howard, but that was also a dangerous flop. There were two diamonds there, possible flush draw, and two cards to a possible straight.
You know, Michael, but I think John D'Agostino knew it was very likely that John Juanda would have continued betting if he checked. And when we happen to know, based on his action before the flop, raising with 3 high, there's no chance that he was going to check. John D'Agostino would have probably picked up another 20 or 30,000 if he had gone for the check raise.
And look at this.
We are going to see some fireworks here.
Good as you can get.
This will be a defining moment in this tournament. Will John Juanda be able to get off this hand? We know it's going to cost him something. Will he be able to get off this hand?
And moreover, what will Phil Ivey do to extract the largest price, the biggest tax that he can charge his buddy and opponent, John Juanda?
Raised 29,000.
29,000. And now Phil Ivey.
I want to point out something here, Barry. The amateur or semi-pro player in this spot will make a big production of, oh gosh, I hate getting raised there, and he'll try to look weak, and he'll go through all sorts of thespian antics. Phil Ivey is all business.
He is the living definition of stoic at a poker table. You will not get anything off of Phil Ivey. This is the kind of hand where John Juanda can get in trouble. He plays very strong, a very strong game before the flop. I don't see him folding here. He could be a fantastic play.
Really would.
But if he doesn't fold, he might just move all in.
Uh-oh.
Well, you said this was going to be a pivotal hand, and it is. Has all the earmarks of that.
Either way, even if he folds here, it's pivotal because he's kept himself in the tournament.
And there's that stoic. You talked about stoic. And now the clock comes into play.
He's down to about 20 seconds. He's going to have to act, or his hand will be dead. You don't get any.
I'm all in.
Oh, and that's that.
He calls. Ivey has 2 aces.
And he sees it. And he knows.
Juanda with ace-10, and Ivey has him covered.
Wow.
Oof.
Flop here.
Now the flop.
He's going to need some serious help here to stay in this tournament.
Flop is Jack 7 deuce.
That's not it.
John Juanda will need runner, 2 cards.
Either 10-10, 9-8, or king-queen. Those
Yes.
are the only ways he can win.
Must come in succession, or else he will be out of the tournament.
Turn card is a 9.
There's a 9.
There's the 9. Now he has an 8. An 8, and he would make a straight.
An 8 on the river.
Well, one card. And here it is.
Last card
The river.
is a 9.
A 9. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
That was close.
Didn't look like it when she turned it, did it? Well,
We really saw John Juanda play a tremendous tournament. I watched him all day yesterday. He really played wonderfully here. Just ran into the wrong hand at the right time, at the wrong time.
a sudden turn, and now, of course, Phil Ivey very much in charge.
Huge chip lead for Phil Ivey. He's going to be tough player to beat from here.
So it's the youngster D'Agostino against the perennial champion Phil Ivey. Showdown. When we come back, don't go away. More to come from here in Verona, New York. Welcome back. A sudden turn as John Juanda is done as he goes all in and loses to pocket aces from Phil Ivey, who now is driving the bus. It's a 2-man game now, as Juanda can only say thank you very much. And Lucetta Ivey on the left and Nicole Shee, the girlfriend of John Juanda, on the right. And mild applause here, but proud of her, man. And John, for you, tough cards against you at exactly the wrong time.
Yeah, you know, I thought Phil Ivey might have a big hand the last hand, but you know, I guess I was a little frustrated too. Every time I raise, I get re-raised. So, well, it's 10, you know, 3-handed. It was a pretty good hand.
John, Michael Koenig here in the secure broadcast booth. We've been thoroughly impressed with your play. We've watched you for 3 days. You've done some amazing things that have really entertained us and enlightened us. You've been watching John D'Agostino, a player that nobody's real familiar with. We all know how great Phil Ivey is. What kind of impression has this young man made on you, and how do you rate his chances against Phil Ivey?
He played great. I think he played better. He played even better today than he did yesterday. Yesterday I was able to beat him out of a lot of pots. I was able to make a lot of plays on him. I mean, you know, I have to wait until I get to see the video, see if he really had a lot of hands against me, or he was making plays on me. If he was making play on me, then you know, then he really played really well.
Well, John, as Michael said, great champion. We know we'll see you back again. Tough luck today, but continued success.
Well, thank you. I mean, you know, I could, you know, maybe I use different strat. Maybe I was using wrong strategy. You know, at first I was thinking I was gonna slow down when it got down to 3-handed, but it appeared to me like they both were playing a little too fast. So I was trying to take advantage of that, and it didn't work out too well. You're welcome.
Again, John, thank you very, very much. John Juanda, as we said, great
playing,
champion
John.
and a great player.
Great playing. I think slowing down is like antithetical to John Juanda's existence. I just think it's tough for him to throw it into neutral, Howard.
Well, here we already we are taking a flop here with the 9-3 and the Queen Jack.
And a 10-6 king on the flop.
Open-ended straight draw for John D'Agostino.
Yeah, and one of the things you're going to see in heads-up play, these guys will not be waiting for even anything that resembles a good hand. These guys are going to be gambling. They're going to be taking shots at pots. We know here that John D'Agostino is not going to fold. Just no matter whether he's going to call a raise. He is going to raise.
Yeah.
First up off 16, going back for more.
And just don't be surprised to see a lot of the 9-3s and the 10-6s being played here.
45.
Playing heads up, these guys.
$45,000.
$45,000 raise. These guys are putting in 2,000, 4,000. Sorry, we're up to 3,000 and 6,000 blinds, and they're playing heads up. So that's over 10. They're paying about $10,000 per 2 hands, which is 1 orbit now. It's 5,000 a hand.
Now, viewers at home might be wondering, what could Phil Ivey possibly be thinking staying in his hand? He only has a 9 high, but he's not playing the cards right now. He's playing the player, and he's playing his position. He's considering, if I put more pressure on this kid, can I get him to lay it down? Looked like he was about to put that big stack in,
Sure
Howard.
did.
There it is, 100,000.
Wow. You know, given John D'Agostino's play so far, I don't think he's going to back down. This is a pivotal hand. John D'Agostino could take a huge lead in this tournament right after this hand.
He doesn't know this. John D'Agostino is not aware of this, but if he were to move all in right now, he would take down the pot.
And he would take the chip lead.
30.
Or at the very least, it would be just about tied. I think he might even have a lead if he were to win this pot right now.
Takes a long look at Phil Ivey, but as you guys said, no tell.
He's going to lay it down. He is going to fold.
Wow.
Phil Ivey wins the pot.
What a play by Phil Ivey. This man can sense weakness
And jump on it.
and just, I mean, we said at the top of the show, he is relentless, and he showed it right there. What a play.
What are we playing for? These two playing for 500 and 250, so second place half of 500. We talked about Phil Ivey, and he is a card player. He is a gambler. He's a guy who's going to roll the dice wherever he is. And you know what? He's got to at least finish second.
I play in the biggest cash games in the world. I mean, I'm going to have to come in second to break even. You know what I mean? I mean, I lost $200,000 to Barry playing props in the tournament. So, what's second place? 250?
I think, right?
Yeah, so I'm going to have to come in second place just to break even.
He's talking about Barry Greenstein and
I won't get into the minutia and the arcana of props, but it's essentially coin flipping for big money while you're playing in a poker game, where you can do this on the side by betting on what cards will come up on the flop. And I guess Barry had a good run. They were sitting at the same table on day one, so he lost $200,000 in this $10,000 buy-in tournament. And but he has gotten even. He will at least show a profit this week.
Barry, the professional gambler, lives in a world with which most of us are not familiar.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I must say, I've always thought, frankly, of gambler and loser in the same sentence, but some of these guys not so, huh?
No. Particularly in poker, this is a game of skill. You aren't playing against the casino, you're playing against other players, and the more skillful players will make a living at this game.
Here's the turn, pairs the sixes.
D'Agostino has 3 6s now.
And Phil Ivey has a flush draw.
Yes, he does.
Monstrous
See some
hand.
fireworks here.
This time, if Phil Ivey tries to put pressure on the young man D'Agostino, he's not going anywhere.
Well, you know, and he senses it. He just calls, and he's got a chance to win this pot now. If he had raised, he probably would have been moved right off the hand.
So he's looking for a heart. And doesn't get it.
And he missed. But he gave himself a chance to hit that flush and maybe bust John D'Agostino right there.
Check to D'Agostino.
Now, he did make a pair of 4s here. And if he makes a small misread, he actually might call this $40,000 bet. There are a lot of hands here that John D'Agostino could have that Phil Ivey actually beats. Yeah, he is calling.
D'Agostino shows 3 6s. He has 6-7. Board had 2 6s on it.
Okay, well, you know, Phil was just looking him up, you know, and he's going to bank that information. He watched how he played that hand. He watched how he played a big hand, and he's just going to slowly but surely keep sharpening his reads on his opponent here.
And in the meantime, John D'Agostino does not look like a guy who's going to take a backward step in this match. We're coming back. Two players remaining, Phil Ivey and John D'Agostino. Here's the chip count. Ivey's still not quite 2-1 over D'Agostino. What's it mean in the big picture, Howard?
Well, I think what we just saw in this last segment was 2 key pots where John D'Agostino had Phil Ivey badly beaten. But during those 2 pots, Phil Ivey added to his stack. Not a whole lot, just a few thousand, but he was badly beaten twice, and he won one of those hands. And that's how you win these poker tournaments.
Look at D'Agostino. Boy, he's catching cards.
Yep, he is.
And heads up, King 9 is a pretty darn good hand. Phil Ivey is, right now he's got to think, I've got this kid cornered. Little does he know, John D'Agostino's got the medicine.
Have to see how much he raises here.
And while we were in break, our producer said to you, Howard, so how long do you think in a two-handed game like this? And your response was anywhere from 2 minutes to 2 hours.
Absolutely. It's lots going to depend on the cards.
50,000.
We already know that these 2 players are going to gamble.
And as a poker fan, I'm rooting for the 2 hours, and I'll tell you why. I want to see how Phil Ivey plays all his hands. The guy's a master. He's a genius at poker.
Yep, there he goes.
Yep.
He is avoiding the situation. I think a lot of people would have called that 50 more to take a flop. He obviously felt some tremendous strength down there, and he'll wait for a better spot.
Let's put this in perspective, guys. This might be the #1 show on Fox Sports Net, except for the Sports List.
The Sports List, exactly. This may be the #1 poker tournament. What was the greatest dunk in basketball history? The most dramatic home run in baseball? The sexiest athlete? Obviously, Howard Leonard. The Sports List is the new show that counts down the 10 best and worst of everything and anything in sports and starts a new argument 5 nights a week. The Sports List with host Summer Saunders premieres Monday at 5 and 8 p.m. only on Fox Sports Net.
Here's one thing we can agree on. Everybody who started this tournament had to put up $10,000 of their own money. Only 9 people got anything back. Everybody else put up a $10,000 buy-in and walked away with absolutely nothing. Every chip in the tournament that started 3 days ago is now sitting on this table in front of these 2 gentlemen, John D'Agostino, Phil Ivey. One of them is going to have every single chip from the American Poker Championship stacked in front of them. And along with it, $500,000.
Here's an interesting hand right here.
Yep,
Actually, more about who doesn't have something than who does.
Just a limp pot here from John D'Agostino on the button. We're going to see a flop.
10, 3, and 9.
Check.
And normally the guy with the button in this kind of hand has a decided advantage getting to act
And these
second.
are the key pots in heads-up and short-handed situations. Who is going to pick up the pot when neither player has anything?
Turn is a king, which does nothing.
Check.
That's the heart monitor. We talked about that earlier. That's very steady, easy heart rate for John D'Agostino.
Wow, and he's peaked at 199. He has really gotten his heart going at times.
But he may be, at that point that he just feels he could beat anybody, and there's the ace.
Wow, and Phil Ivey's really got to like winning this pot with an 8 high, and he has to be feeling pretty good about the fact that he has John D'Agostino a little intimidated. I can't blame John D'Agostino a bit. It would be intimidating for anyone to be playing Phil Ivey, but It's his intimidation factor that wins him pots like that. If that was someone else sitting there with the 8 deuce, John D'Agostino almost certainly would have taken a stab at this pot at some point, if not before the flop, on 4th Street, but he went check, 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 and allowed the 8 high to win.
Second place, guaranteed, $250,000.
Yep.
First place, $500,000. Effectively, these two guys are playing for the $250,000 difference. Phil Ivey is used to $250,000 swings on a nightly basis in some of the big games that he plays around the world. I don't know John D'Agostino's pedigree, but there are a few 21-year-olds that I'm aware of who see $250,000 changes in their net worth overnight.
It's from the Connecticut area, but not big city Connecticut.
One thing he does have going for him, though, is that sort of serenity of knowing, well, the worst I can do is walk away with second.
That serenity is really, really big. I can't tell you about the psychology of once you finally get heads up. Yeah, well, you don't want to finish second. No one likes finishing second. But when the worst you can do is win $250,000, it really just frees you up to just say, and there's nothing left to do. It's not like, well, if I hang in there, maybe I move up a spot. There's no other psychology. The only goal, either of these two, and there's no competing goal, is to win the tournament. That really changes things.
Barry, you broadcast a lot of boxing, and when you have a prohibitive favorite facing what amounts to a tomato can, the guy who's the big underdog not only can win the fight, but he can make a name for himself. He can make a reputation. If John D'Agostino were to find a way to knock off Phil Ivey, Howard Lederer's pick for possibly best poker player in the world at this point, he's gone from anonymous internet player to household name among poker players.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is there is such a thing here, and this we could see this today as a good loss.
24.
Yes, but it takes a while. It takes a week or two before you wake up one day and say, yeah, that was pretty cool. Right. You know, it was nice I was in that tournament and I came second. For the next hour, 2 hours, 2 days, you're just, I should have won, I should have won. You know, there's just no other way to do it.
So we'll jump away. This continues. It is mano a mano, Phil Ivey and John D'Agostino. Don't go away. Nighttime starting to fall on Turning Stone Casino. We're in Verona, New York. Had a great stay here over the last few days. Started out with 108, now we're down to 2, and a surprising 2 at that. Not so much Phil Ivey, but rather the other half, John D'Agostino. And for him, and you talked about this earlier, Howard, it's a win-win. But when you look at Phil Ivey, you have to ask yourself now, is it a lose-lose? If you beat him, people are going to say, sure, you're supposed to beat him. If you lose to him, they say, what's the matter with you?
You know, I really don't agree with that kind of thinking. When I'm in a position like Phil Ivey, I'm just thinking about winning the tournament. I'm doing what I do. And, you know, a guy like Phil Ivey, I don't think there is much pressure. If he loses here, is anyone going to think he isn't a great player? Of course not. Who has more to gain or lose here? It's John D'Agostino. If he wins, he will be remembered as the guy who beat Phil Ivey, and he will enter poker lore, winning the first live broadcast on American television. Phil Ivey's going to be a great player, and he will be known as a great player no matter what happens tonight.
He's the underdog here, but he bets into D'Agostino.
And he's probably going to win this pot. And we've now seen, assuming that John is going to fold, but actually maybe right now he is going to fold. Now, I believe this is about 3 pots in a row where it's gone miss-miss, where both players have flopped nothing. And who's won all 3 of those hands? Phil Ivey's won all 3 of those hands, and that's really important here. It's going to be hard for John D'Agostino to win if he's going to wait for a hand.
And trying to make Turning Stone his own. Turning Stone Resort and Casino is excitement. Enjoy world-class gaming 24 hours a day, any way you like it. Poker to roulette, from blackjack to baccarat, from keno to bingo. Or slot yourself in at any one of our 2,300 instant multi-game machines. For those who like the thrill of the outdoors, come play our 3 championship golf courses created by the world's master designers. And for those who like to do nothing at all, put your feet up, take pleasure in the natural wonders that surround you. Come stay and play in beautiful upstate New York at Turning Stone. Oh, Howard, you played cards. Michael, you played golf. I got a manicure.
And you look fabulous.
Yes, thank
Barry.
you so much.
You know, Barry, I watched poker. That's what I was
That's
doing
true.
here.
That's true.
A long day yesterday. 3:30 in the morning.
And you can see Jack 7 suited for Phil Ivey.
Yep, and another one of these hands.
Raised to 24.
Oh, raise.
Four from the button from John D'Agostino.
24,000 and called by Phil Ivey. We're going to see a flop again.
Ironically, these hand percentages are equal to if it were a coin flip race kind of hand, like a pair of sixes versus an ace queen.
And on the flop, a pair of aces and a 9.
D'Agostino could effectively represent that he might have an ace. And really the way to do it is to check.
Yeah, well, you know, but this was one of those things. It's been 3 in a row now for Ivey on the nothing. And D'Agostino set this play up with the raise before the flop.
Yep.
He just had to continue here. If he didn't bet here, it was just all over. He was just giving up. Okay, Phil, you win. That was a must bet, and he made it. Maybe he'll get back in the game.
And again, absolutely impassive is Phil Ivey. I always talk about tells in this sport. Do you see any? Can you find any in this guy?
No. I mean, if he had an obvious weakness like a glaring tell, he wouldn't be able to beat the biggest and toughest players in the world.
Not only does he not have a tell while he's playing, he doesn't have any sort of reaction when he rakes in a hand or throws in a losing hand. It's like looking at a painting. A handsome painting.
Yes. He's a good guy. I actually really enjoyed talking with him. He's, you know, you ask him a question, he gives you the kind of answer you'd expect, which is an absolutely straight answer, and he's got it all figured out. Jackson a 5. That's
Wow,
not
look
bad
at this
for
flop.
D'Agostino. That's pretty good, isn't it?
Might be time to slow play. If it was ever a slow playing hand, this is it.
16,000.
Yeah, this is very quick, easy call. Maybe he might have wanted to give it just a few more seconds there before he called.
It turns a 10.
Phil Ivey may already be on to him. We'll have to see if he's figured it out.
Check.
Yeah, he's on to
Yeah.
him. Now the question is, will he have the discipline to check it back to Phil Ivey one more time?
You know, Michael, I think it may not matter. I think John D'Agostino may have made a bit of an error. That was a very quick call before the flop. He didn't think about it. And, you know, Phil just knows that he had at least a 5, and he was just done with it after he got called on the flop.
And unfortunately for John D'Agostino, Phil never improved. He didn't catch a 9. He didn't catch any sort of huge draw.
We talked earlier to Paul Phillips was talking about young players as Ivey obviously did get enough of a lead to say, I'm not hanging around here. What Phillips was saying is every young player has got to make his mistakes. Make them when you're young, learn from them, and go on.
Well, he will watch the tape of this show, and he'll say, well, maybe the next time I flop a full house, I'm going to maybe at least give it just a little pause. You don't have to, like, beat him in there with the call.
He got away with it. The other thing I think is interesting is John Juanda, when we spoke with him, said he's a better player today than he was yesterday.
Absolutely. If you aren't, you're not improving, you're not learning.
Moreover, if this is the last poker tournament John D'Agostino ever appears at the final table at, he does have a lucrative career as a Mike Piazza impersonator.
Yes, very good.
Well, but we really saw one of those nice in-between hands. This isn't the kind of hand that would often show up in a taped broadcast, but we really saw an expert example of a player taking a shot at the pot and then slowing down, realizing that this guy really had something, and then just, you know, just lose the minimum. You lose the minimum when you're beat, and you win the maximum when you have the best hand. It's an awfully hard combination to beat.
Ivey caught an ace, as you see.
And merely calls the raise.
Yeah, well, he's very comfortable playing flops. He obviously feels pretty strong about his read on John D'Agostino, and that becomes more powerful after the flop.
995.
A 9s and a 5. Look at
Another
D'Agostino.
huge flop for him. Okay, this time, Howard, Phil checked, Let's see how long John D'Agostino takes to throw in money on this one.
And another quick bet.
30,000.
But, you know, I like this play. You know, Phil Ivey's a very aggressive player. I would expect him to fold, but he might get raised here.
Yeah, I like the play too.
Phil might be thinking, you know, he'd probably check a 9. And yes, you see, and Phil could be calling for value here too, which means he thinks he actually might have the best hand with the ace high. But there's a good chance that Phil may try a play here. And he's going to be in trouble.
Caught a pair, but not nearly enough.
Check.
Well, I would like to see John D'Agostino check it back right here. That would really be laying the snare for Phil Ivey.
Either that or a small bet. A small bet, just charge him something. Entice him. There it is. A
50,000.
little less than half the pot. You know, and unluckily for Phil, he's made some kind of a hand here. He now has a deuce with an ace, 9s and deuces with an ace, and unless D'Agostino has a 5, he's probably thinking he doesn't have a 9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's going to call.
Yep. So he's charging him here. I don't mind this bet.
We know Phil Ivey can't win. Phil Ivey might, in fact, think he's leading.
And now the river is a jack, which of course does nobody any good. He checks.
How much did you bet here, Howard?
Again, probably about half the pot.
Good.
And that's what he's betting. About 100,000. There's 210 in the pot.
Key decision for Phil Ivey, Barry.
You know, he's sizing him up. One of the hardest things to do in poker is the triple-barreled bluff. To shoot one bluff bullet
On the flop,
on the
on
second
the turn, and on
a
the river.
third on the river. It's a hard thing to do. I think
He's saying-
Phil's probably thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
He might get away from this.
He's
thing.
saying, is this kid really capable of bluffing into me 3 times in a row? Wow,
To find out.
He called him.
3 9s.
Wow.
And we, for the first time, Barry, we actually saw that impassive face, a brief little frown around the lips, like,
Yeah.
whoops.
I got whipped. And he'll certainly go to school on it, but it's a very expensive lesson for Phil Ivey. So all of a sudden, John D'Agostino get behind the wheel of the bus. American Poker Championship is being brought to you tonight by WebMD, redefining modern medicine. By Gillette, the best a man can get. And by Johnsonville Brats, the best taste on the grill. And we welcome you back. And in that one hand, things suddenly, guys,
Wow.
almost got even.
Didn't they actually reversed
Big switch.
the other way? They were very close to even, and now John D'Agostino has a 680,000 to 440,000 chip lead. Things have we're going to have to see the fight that Phil Ivey has in him to try and come back from this. But we've also seen he's just running into some big hands here. John D'Agostino's just hitting flop after flop after flop.
Sure is.
You know, that was a tough hand. Very well played by John D'Agostino. I'm sure that Phil Ivey's probably thinking to himself, what am I doing losing 200,000 in a pot with just an ace high at the start and then a pair of deuces?
A pair of deuces on the end.
You know, but, you know, he got those chips by gambling. He obviously felt like John D'Agostino was bluffing. It was that bet on the flop. Yep. Not slow playing the 3 9s that really got him that money.
And Howard, both you and I liked that play on the flop.
Yes. And it got him all that other money. If he had checked and then Phil Ivey had bet on the turn and then he raised, the hand might have been over.
The kid's a player.
Yeah. So we're just taking a flop here with some middling cards.
Flop both players in for
Post flop play is so interesting.
Ace 7 Jack. D'Agostino is paired.
Check.
John checks.
16,000.
Yeah, well, after winning that last hand, he's feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
Phil Ivey didn't raise before the flop, so he doesn't figure to have an ace. It's a pretty standard call by John D'Agostino.
Now the turn.
Turn cards are 3.
A 3.
Actually, a straight draw for Ivey.
Yep.
A 4 will fill that gut shot.
We'll have to see if he takes the free card. Yes, he is. So now he can hit that 4.
And the river's a jack.
That's
so
a great card for John D'Agostino,
Jack.
Howard.
Yes.
Jack, 2 pairs.
Phil Ivey learning his lesson from the last hand, just slowing down. He took his free card.
All right, we're going.
What's happening here, though, is D'Agostino all of a sudden is both winning good hands and bad hands.
The blinds look to be going up, fellas.
Yes, the blinds are going up.
Well, a reminder, critics are calling the Best Damn Sports Show period a 90-minute frat party with irreverent skits, insightful interviews, and sharp locker room banter. The Best Damn Sports Show period, weeknights at 8:30 and again at 11, only on Fox Sports Net.
Featuring one of the greatest poker players to ever sit behind a microphone, Mr. Chris Rose.
There you are.
Howard and I are just begging him to come and play in our home game.
Oh, Chris.
Thank you, sir.
John D'Agostino picks up another ace, and you know, Barry, heads up, an ace deuce, huge.
John D'Agostino, I think, has gone from glad to be here to I'm going to win this thing.
Oh, yeah, he is absolutely intent on winning this thing. I think maybe some of the jitters here of this early heads-up play, you know, certainly having the chip lead, winning these few pots, flopping those big hands, all of a sudden, it's just when things start rolling for you, you start just picking up your play and making a lot of good decisions.
Some housekeeping here, Howard. The blinds have gone up to 6,000, 12,000. With the chip stacks as they are, is there any pressure on a guy to play more frequently than he might usually?
I don't think the blinds are really going to drive the action quite just yet. I think these guys have plenty of chips and they can play. It's certainly going to affect Ivey more than John D'Agostino. He's down to around 400,000 in chips, and that 12,000 is starting to represent a decent percentage of his stack.
Well, Ivey suited 9-8.
Raise.
Much.
36,000 total.
36,000.
36,000 is the total.
Fold.
Down.
And he folds. He picked up the antes.
And Ivey will take that. Thank you very much. Well, guys, the poker world lost one of its own recently.
Yeah, last week we suffered a tremendous loss. Andrew Glazer, the poker pundit, one of the finest poker reporters. He watched these final tables and he gave us tremendous reporting. He also was a staunch defender of the integrity of the game.
Not only was a terrific advocate of poker, Andy was a magnificent man. Honesty, integrity, respectability. He was a friend, and we will miss him.
I'm at a real estate seminar at this delightful.
We welcome you back to the Turning Stone Casino. We're in Verona, New York. And we're down to 2 in the American Poker Championship. Winner with 500,000, loser 250,000. There's a guy who wishes he was here.
He's watching the action. This is very exciting, even for the other players. First live broadcast.
Another one of the really solid players in the game. And here's a guy, boy, we've been talking about it all night long, but he's making some noise.
He's playing well, but he's catching cards. So we're going to have to see if that will keep up. I don't ever count Phil Ivey out.
Well, Phil Ivey was talking to us this morning about games he's played, and he said, I played in games where you win or lose $1 million in one night, so this is just another game.
Fold.
And that will help him. He's showing a little patience there. I'm actually surprised he threw that away.
Me too. During the break, Phil Ivey was doing self-affirmation mantras. I am Tiger Woods. I am Tiger Woods. Startling resemblance, actually.
There is a resemblance.
Well, this is poker, and Tiger Woods doesn't face the kind of luck that so far Phil Ivey has faced. You know, if Tiger's just going to play better, he's probably 9 out of 10 times going to win. But every once in a while, in poker, and it happens more often than not, sometimes the best player is not going to win at a table like this. You know, I don't think anyone would argue who is the better of these two players, but John D'Agostino plays well enough that if the cards go his way, he can win.
Both caught an ace. This might be interesting.
This could be some fireworks.
Yes.
36,000.
And this is really the first really lucky matchup for Phil Ivey so far. He calls.
Good.
Call.
John's call.
Look out if an ace hits the board. Look out.
Yeah. We could have a new chip leader after this hand.
So now the flop, and ace did not. 3, 4, 5.
3.
Okay, here's another hand where they
Check.
both missed. Let's see what happens.
D'Agostino checks.
They both have a straight draw. A 2 would give them both a straight.
Right.
60,000's a bet.
Ivy's bet 60,000.
Ivy bet 60,000. There's the heart monitor.
His heart's settling down a little
Yes.
bit. We saw it a little over 100. Well, now here goes.
Good fold.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's good
really,
laydown.
really good lay down there, Mike.
I think he might be protecting his chip lead a little. Phil Ivey is a dangerous player who could have raised with anything. That 3, 4, 5 could have easily helped Phil Ivey's hand. I think he was just happy to call that raise before the flop, as he certainly should do with an ace-8, and just wait and see what happens. He didn't like the situation. He's going to pick a better spot to gamble.
To continue the golf metaphor we were on before, there are so many poker tournaments going on these days. Poker's on TV all the time. We have it weekly here on Fox Sports Net. You can find a tournament to play in almost any day of the week, but there are the majors. This is one of the majors. $10,000 buy-in, first live poker final table in the United States. Guys like Phil Ivey, like his separated at birth twin, Tiger Woods, want to win majors. The money's nice, but the hardware and the title is what gives them a legacy.
Fold.
And here we have D'Agostino folding on the button with Jack 4.
No Tiger Woods here, though, as we hit the links ourselves here. Take a look at
The
this.
casino's right over there, but this is where the real gambling happens.
God, I hate you.
That was the easiest money I ever made.
You want to bet again?
See, the beauty of the bet is that he didn't know that we had the bet. See, now he's really going to bear down. Now he's going to bear down.
Romeo!
You got the money.
I'll tell you, the best way to earn a living is play golf with poker players.
Yeah, those are two great poker players we were seeing there. Eric Lindgren, two-time WPT champ, and Josh Aria has had many great third-place finish in this year's World Series of Poker. Really, really great players, obviously not great golfers. I mean, I haven't seen much of anything more ugly than that swing by Eric Lindgren. Just a complete shank into the woods there.
A funny thing, Barry, about poker players, it seems like the worse they play, the higher they want to gamble on the golf course.
Of course.
Bless their hearts.
And you were kind. I was just going to say, you're kind enough to take their money. Ivy here with an ace-jack.
And he has raised, and John D'Agostino has called.
And now the flop. D'Agostino's been very lucky on the flop, and he catches a pair here
This is
again.
an awfully good flop for D'Agostino, and he checks.
Phil Ivey could get in trouble on this hand because he has two overcards. Even if his opponent, D'Agostino, caught part of that flop, he's thinking, well, hey, I still have two overcards, and I can take this pot away if I improve on the next
He just
card.
bet 50,000. It'll be interesting to see how D'Agostino plays this. Or 60. It looks like 60. He has to think his hand is good.
The kid has top pair. He can't fold here.
Raise.
Yeah, he's raising.
Good.
130 more.
130 more thousand.
That's gutsy.
That represents a sizable proportion of Phil Ivey's stack.
Now look at his heartbeat.
Yeah, he is. And sometimes, I know me personally, my heart rate will go up higher actually when I have a pretty good hand. When I'm bluffing, it seems like I'm almost calmer. The excitement of knowing you have a good hand, wanting him to call, will really get your heart rate up.
Good raise, and the money goes to John D'Agostino. So Ivey drops the hand, and D'Agostino drops his heart rate. We're coming back with more. Don't go away. We welcome you back to Turning Stone. Barry Tompkins, Howard Lederer, Michael Kroenig. Watching John D'Agostino and Phil Ivey. And D'Agostino has made this a battle. In fact, he's made it a battle that he looks for all the world he can win.
If these were any other players, we'd say the guy with a 2-1 chip lead was a prohibitive favorite. But because it's Phil Ivey, they're about even at this point. Look at this. D'Agostino picks up another big hand.
Another big hand. And based on, Phil Ivey's decided to wait. You know, he folded the king 3. These are hands where Phil Ivey had the chip lead and things were going his way. He might be calling with a jack, says king 3. Take a flop, see what happens. Right now, I think he says, you know, I'm going to wait for a nice hand before I get involved again. And you know, what we are seeing are these little in-between hands, again, that don't show up on the tape shows. We're seeing how these tournaments are won. We're seeing how these stacks are built, one chip at a time, sort of the in-between hands before the big fireworks.
Yeah, you really get a sense of the ebb and flow, Michael, don't you, here, which again, as a layperson watching poker on television, I haven't seen before.
To me, Barry, this is like a boxing match. We're in the middle rounds now, and each guy is establishing his jab. He's trying to get his opponent to lower that left hand so he can come in there with that big right cross.
Call.
And here we have another confrontation. Ivey has a pretty good hand, but D'Agostino has a better hand. He's probably going to re-raise. Maybe not. Okay, he's going to take a flop. He has shown he's comfortable taking flops.
More.
Oh, he did raise, sorry. That actually must have been a limp in by Phil Ivey, which is a rather unusual play with an ace-8, which leads me to believe he might re-raise here.
Let's explain that. I don't think we've explained limp in here, so just for the record.
Limping in is when you enter the pot, but you don't raise. So right now they're playing 6 and 12,000 blinds. Phil Ivey is committing 6,000 to the pot without looking at his cards. John D'Agostino is committing 12,000 to the pot. So it's 6,000 to Phil Ivey to call the blind raise. He just moved all in.
Take the 36 in. How much?
He's really putting some pressure on John D'Agostino. We see he's a 56-44 favorite, and if he knew what Phil Ivey had, he would call in an instant. But this is one of those situations where you're thinking, well, he either has 2 big cards, and I'm 56%, or he has a bigger pair than me, in which case he's more like 8.
He calls. This could be it. Look at that heart rate going up.
Well, we have a race situation. Phil Ivey's going to have to hit an ace or an 8.
Or John D'Agostino will be the champion of the American Poker Championship.
How do you like this?
You know, I like how Phil Ivey played this hand. John D'Agostino just played it a little bit better. Now let's see what happens.
There it is.
Flop is king.
There's the 8. Now look at that, 90%. John D'Agostino is going to have to hit a 7, or Phil Ivey will take a 2-1 chip lead himself.
Wow.
Turn card coming up.
Here's the turn. You heard him say 7.
Whoop.
Now a 5.
Now a 5 gives him a win. A 7 or a 5.
John D'Agostino. Make it straight with a 5.
5.
He does not want to keep playing. He wants this over right now.
Absolutely. Whole tournament could end right here.
It's
an 8. 3 8s. My goodness, how things have turned around. Reversal of fortune.
And now Ivey has the 2-1 chip lead.
Unbelievable.
This is no limit hold'em at its finest. We're seeing some very good play, but we're also seeing how quickly things change. 2-1 chip lead for John D'Agostino. 1 hand later, 2-1 chip lead.
$674,000 in that pot. Now who's driving the bus? We'll be back. We welcome you back once again as night has fully taken hold here at the Turning Stone Casino. We're in Verona, New York. We are down to 2 in the final of the American Poker Championship. $500,000 to the winner, $250,000 to the second place finisher. It looked for all the world like D'Agostino had the whip hand. All of a sudden, it is Phil Ivey who turns things around on one hand, and he now has about a $230,000 edge in chips on the table. And just stay within yourself. It all works out.
You know, a lot of people get, they put too much emotion into each hand. You know, I play so many hands of poker. I play poker every day. That to me, it's just another hand, you know? So if I lose a tough hand or I win a hand where I got lucky, I don't really, you know, it's not really nothing to me, you know? I mean, I play in games where, you know, I have played in games where you win and lose $1 million in a day.
And today stands to win $500,000 or ostensibly lose $250,000.
Yep, so he stands to win about 4 hours worth of work.
That's right. That's right. It's good.
I don't know what he's doing, wasting his time for 3 days.
He's giving us a great show on live television.
Yes, exactly. And, you know, we just saw a situation. We saw the odds. John D'Agostino gave himself a chance, 54% chance to end this tournament, but he still has 40% of the chips. So 54% of the time the tournament was going to be over and he wins. And out of the other 46% of the time, he's still going to win a decent percentage of the time. He was in a fantastic position.
You cannot fault the play.
That good call.
Can't fault the play. It was
Very
a
good
fine play.
Check.
2 queens on the flop with a 9. Ivey with a king. And the turn gives Ivey 2 pair.
Check.
Ivey checks.
Yeah, and he's giving D'Agostino a little rope here.
D'Agostino bets
15,000.
And continue to give him that rope. Of course, if a 10 hits, D'Agostino would make a straight here.
And now the river. 7.
7 of spades.
So Ivey's got the hand
yeah,
1.
He's definitely going to check. Yeah, one check.
Kings and queens.
Very well played. A lot of people might think, well, why didn't Ivey bet that 2 pair? You know,
He could only get raised there, Howard.
That is what I like to call, Michael, an offensive check. He had the kind of hand that he's pretty sure it's good, but he's not looking to bet and get raised or play a big pot. Check, hope he bets. He's actually hoping his opponent will bet, but he's also realizes that if his opponent has him beat, he's not going to lose a big pot, and he gives himself the best chance to win some money on the river by checking and calling.
Impeccable
D'Agostino
play.
didn't fall for it and checked. It was a very well played hand on both parts.
As most have been.
Yes. Well, we were really treated to a very fine final table. John D'Agostino did not bring the average down much at this table. I mean, this is a very fine player for a 21-year-old. It's actually mind-boggling to me, and we've seen very, very good play tonight.
To me, this is a testament to a number of things. One, the amount of information that's out there now for budding young poker players. Textbooks, articles, expert commentary from poker professors. Poker on TV, where you get to see great players and their hole cards. If you want to learn how to play well, the information's out there. And I think we're seeing a whole new generation of young people who are self-educated. And once they come of age, when they are legal to walk into a casino, look out.
And D'Agostino actually is barely legal in most casinos. Now here, the gambling age is 18.
Yes, at the Turning Stone Casino, although I believe for this tournament it was a 21-year age limit.
And if all else fails, Phil Ivey can ask security to check John D'Agostino's
that's right. Exactly. Ivey wins this one.
Nice little in-between pot. We just saw a little in-between pot here where Phil Ivey picks up a hand where he did not have the best hand. Both players missed, and Ivey's getting back to business.
You'll note, Barry, that in these little in-between pots, generally the guy who has the big stack ends up taking down these little pots because he can afford to probe and pick and peck. The guy with the short stack, every time he puts chips in the pot, he knows this could be my last hand if I get too involved.
And those of you at home who are like me and play with matchsticks, that little pot right there was $44,000.
Well, you know, everything's relative, and right now the antes are very high. Both of these guys have huge chip stacks. They've each locked up $250,000, so we can call a $44,000 pot a small pot.
Right.
At the beginning of this tournament, a $1,000 pot was a huge pot when you're playing with 25, 50 blinds.
A $44,000 pot represents more than 4 buy-ins to this tournament. 44,000 represents 4 guys who have come and gone.
Looks like we have a little action this hand.
This could be our ultimate hand.
Raise, go to 36,000.
36,000 by John D'Agostino.
So explain, guys, why we only have 66% up there.
It's very easy with aces with low kickers to split the pot.
Right. If a bunch of high cards hit pairs easily, it could just be the ace playing for each player. Almost about a third of the time, in fact. Rather sizable re-raise here.